Hi everyone and welcome to this 27th Urban AI conversation. My name is Hubert, I'm the founder of Urban AI, and for this Urban AI conversation we have the great pleasure of welcoming Marie Bernard, project manager, more precisely innovation and digital project manager at Nantes Métropole, and Juliette Plaire, AI territorial coordination at Nantes Métropole. Hi Marie, hi Juliette.
Hello. Hi.
Great to have you for this 27th Urban AI conversation, which is dedicated to debating AI, and more precisely a project called Nantes Débat. Nantes is debating AI. We will learn more about this fascinating project in a few seconds, but just before, a few words about Urban AI. What is Urban AI? It's a global organization dedicated to the emerging field of urban artificial intelligence. We federate a think tank with which we are doing research, experiment, event in this field of urban AI to make advance the field of urban artificial intelligence. We also have a company with which we are doing consulting and capacity building programs. And lastly, we federate a community of more than 200 worldwide experts doing research projects at the intersection of AI and city. And very regularly, we are organizing urban AI conversations such as this one, during which experts, international experts, public servants, as it will be the case today, or researcher can present, discuss their latest project or research at the intersection of AI and cities. And for this 27th conversation dedicated to Nantes Débat, Nantes is debating AI. So we have the great pleasure of welcoming Marie Bernard and Juliette Plaire. And it's also a great pleasure to welcome Nantes Métropole, because with Urban AI, we really had the honor of collaborating with Nantes Métropole for this project, Nantes Débat. So we are a bit partial when we say it's an amazing and fascinating project, but we still truly believe it's. And you will see that it's very inspiring what did Nantes during 1 year. We are discussing a lot, especially at Urban AI, and you saw it during previous publication, maybe a previous conversation. We are discussing a lot about the importance of participatory governance in artificial intelligence. And here we really have a solid and strong example of what could mean doing participatory governance in AI. So first we will have a 15-20 minute presentation by our speakers, Marie and Juliette, and then as usual, conversation, 20-25 minutes conversation. Marie, Juliette, really looking forward to this conversation, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Hubert. So I'll start. My name is Juliette, and my colleague Mary and I are going to talk about Nantes Débat, which can be translated as Nantes AI debate, and which is a local consultation process on the subject of AI that was conducted during several months. Thank you. So first, some context. So Nantes is a local community located in Western France that combines 24 cities. As part of its responsible digital public policy, Nantes Métropole has established a doctrine on artificial intelligence. And we have launched, Nantes Débat to develop a common culture in the field of AI and to understand the state of local perception and practices. A call for contribution was published to identify, map, and listen to the local stakeholders in the AA file. Sorry. Oh, that was the, you can switch to the next one. Oh,
Sorry.
thank you. No, no problem. So here's the general schedule of the process with different highlights. So the first wave of certified events took place from April 2024 to September 2024, with, at the end of it, an interim feedback event. There's actually a picture in the following slide, if I remember well. Maybe you can show it, Marie. Yay! And Hubert was present to talk about the first analysis that he and his team made of this first wave of events. We filmed the entire event, so there's a replay on Nantes Métropole's YouTube if anyone is interested. And there was a second wave of certified event from September 2024 to January 2025. So we attended more events and we gave Urban AI more content so that they could do the final analysis. And with the results of this analysis was written the white paper Nantes Débat towards artificial territorial appropriation of artificial intelligence. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. So to do that, we worked with Urban AI, so Hubert and his team, Olivier Haim and Flordy Chulot, if I pronounce it well, to conduct an analysis of Nantes Débat de l'IA events. So thank you again, Hubert, for this work. So the aim of this whole process was to identify different narratives. So key topics of interest, pinpoint areas of friction and divergence. But what was also really important for us was to identify narrators and to create a map precise enough to show all of them and to show the specific perspective of every one of these narrators. So the goal was not simply to analyze discourses in isolation, but to align and contextualize them with the broader set of actors and stakeholders. So we had like institutions, we had businesses, individuals, associations, for example. And to do that, Hubert and his team worked with a social semiotic method of analysis, which lies at the intersection of sociology and semiotics. And the choice of this socio-semiotic approach was interesting because it allowed to reveal the diversity of local representation and practices of AI. And I will let Marie present the results of the analysis later in this presentation. So here's a picture of the interim feedback event once again. And so during this whole process, we certified 56 events. So once again, from April 2024 to January 2025. And we had a precise method to choose the event we certified. There was one really important criteria for us. We wanted to certify events that were, of course, talking about AI, but the point wasn't just to say AI is good or AI isn't good. That was not what we were looking for. We were really looking for events that were going beyond this, event that really had a point about AI and how people are using it to do what, how it's going to change things for them. And we certified events, so as you can see on the screen, from various formats or angles and sectors. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening to me, and now I'll let Mary talk about the analysis.
Yeah, thanks, Juliette. So the results here are published in French, but let me just quickly walk you through this content that was once again provided by Urban AI team as described by Juliette. Here on the screen you see what was developed and delivered for the interim results. So with only like halfway through the process, we were able to identify a number of expressions, way of discoursing around AI within our local area through this analysis of the certified events. And you'll see that it becomes much more complex, and I will spend more time on the final results, but already here we were able to identify that depending on whether you're more an expert of AI, whether you're more on the business side, which is entreprise on the screen, or more the civil society, i.e. individuals or associations, public sector, civil servants, for example, there were some concerns, some issues, some specific points that you would say you would express about AI that were relevant to your sector, your area, but there were also a number of elements like agency, like the concern for ecology, that were broadly shared, regardless of whether you were expressing as an expert or as an individual, for example. We'll get back to this in a moment. And as we progressed through Nantes Débat and through this collection of narratives, you have to imagine how many words and lines and expressions that means to have the entire text from 56 events. The specialists within Urban AI team have been able to single out, to identify that the narratives became more and more complex. So we ranged from a couple of narratives from each different sector, so in total 6-7 narratives for the whole 3 sectors, to like a dozen of them, which stands from again the initial ones: agency, the way we would look at it from an ethical perspective, but some things that somehow surprised us, like a narrative around the marvelous, a narrative around acceptability, which were very interesting to hear, and I think we can explain in a moment why this became much more sophisticated in the way the people in our territory expressed their views about AI across the initiative. So don't be afraid, but that's what the main deliverable from Urban AI looks like. So there is a combination of what we just saw, which is like mapping the various types of narratives and trying to check whether or not they were mostly represented in certain areas, mostly industry sectors, but not only, that are critical within our ecosystem. In Nantes, we have a lot of people from the creative sector, from the healthcare sector in particular. We had a lot of startups, so we also tried to map out whether there were some key stakes expressed by the stakeholders. But as I don't know if, I mean, in particular, if you're not a French reader, if that's very obvious, but you have all these, again, let me show you these points here, which are the narratives. You can find them on the screen as well, but they are not specific to one single group. You see here agentivité on the creative sector on the upper right corner. Agentivité means agency. You see that it spans, it is shared with every single other sector. So meaning we've had, we managed to, through discourse analysis, to witness that there were a number of expressions that were really key and spanning across our local territory. So the main ones, which are they? It's agency, and agency, it's the ability to remain in control, to see AI as a tool. So people, regardless of whether they come from medical, from healthcare sector, whether they come from association, whether they help with illiteracy in computer science, for example, whether they come from educational sector, public sector, every single one of the events, we had key questions raised from the citizens, from the professionals, around this capacity to remain in control, and a whole range. Of course, it gets deeper than that, but we don't have the time here. A whole range of questions were collected by our metropolis, so that we can analyze and be sure that we are fully aware of what the territory is concerned about when it comes to AI. The same goes with a number of them. You see in the lower left corner, ethical speech, discours éthique is also widely spread, and it ranges, and we'll see in a minute how this can translate into tools and into action. But it's making sure that there is transparency, that we know what is done with the whole life cycle of data that is used to feed artificial intelligence tools and systems, so that there was almost every time a concern expressed in various ways during the certified event of Nantes Débat. But we also had, interestingly, a number of much more subtle things, like sideration. I think the word is the same, or can be understood by English-speaking people. So the way that people witnessed that they were flabbergasted. And when AI emerged, there was this moment, this sort of floating moment before people took ownership. And that's where I will come back shortly to this interim result, which was interesting, having, and that's something I would definitely recommend when you have such a long-term program of almost a year, having mid-term analysis. The picture has become more and more complex, but we also witnessed that people from the initial sheer flabbergastering, if that is an actual word in English, became more and more aware. And we could sense from phase 1 events where people were a bit like, oh, this is happening. And what about my place in the world, my place in the organization, my place at work, whatever, with AI entering this new universe. They became more and more aware, and we could witness as well, through listening carefully, that people started to take ownership, and from consideration started to express a more empirical perspective. So I have tested this, and how is this going to fit into this area, my personal area of work, my area of hobby, and so on and so forth. So we could witness as well through this whole process how the society that we live in the local area was more and more aware in practical terms of what was going on, and in return asking more and more precise questions and engaging in more and more sophisticated debates. So that was a real pleasure to witness this gain in expertise. And actually, and that's my last slide for today, that's one of the key learnings, from this 9 to 12 months listening to our community, our local community, and trying to make sure that what we put in practice in terms of local governance is really matching the expectations. What we learned mostly is that the initial sort of panic reactions, what I mentioned with sideration, with the fact that people were more or less positioning themselves in, very black and white debate initially, has been replaced with a more concrete, more empirical experiment. And we realized that the more we were able to engage with local, concretely and locally rooted context, the more interesting the debate became. At the end of the day, what we could already quite strongly define, and that was part of the recommendation of Urban AI in the white papers, is that citizens wish, whether they are expressing themselves as individuals, as professionals, and even as experts of AI, they wish that AI remains a tool, meaning that agency, which I mentioned briefly, is really taking into account, meaning we want to use it only if it preserves the right place of human being in the process. We must remain in control. That's what we heard very strongly, very consistently. These tools, they have to be empowering, meaning they also have to be supervised, and their effects have to be measured. So that was also a very consistent finding throughout the process, and the more we became complex and delve into detail, the more it was obvious. There is also a strong demand for transparency, in particular indicated whether or not AI was used in any single process, and if so, to what extent. And an overarching concern that was really, really consistently heard throughout the process is ecology, with various nuances. But what's the use of having new tools if, on the other hand, we lose elements from our ecosystem or from other countries' ecosystems, meaning if we damage ecology? That's something that we may have not believed that it was already so conscious and that our citizens were so aware. And in conclusion, our local community, Nantes Métropole, has published a response to Urban AI's recommendations. So that's a synthesis, which is a shorter leaflet than the 40-page or so that the white paper is. But mostly we now have in our hands a number of these recommendations, and we will monitor our own tools. We have a doctrine on AI. We also have an instruction compass, an AI compass with about 80 questions that we ask every time we want to engage on our territory. Go, no go questions, ranging from a variety of elements. And so we're going to monitor this and try to see if we respond to really what the citizens have expressed during Nantes Débat, which means we have in the next months, in the next years, to remain agile with our own tools, our monitoring tools, but also anchored and community oriented, so that we serve the territory the best we can. So that's what we had to very, very briefly express to give you some ideas about Nantes Débat, but I'm sure you'll have many questions that we it's been very intense 9 months, and it's a challenge to summarize it in about 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marie, Juliette, for managing actually this impossible challenge, impossible mission of synthesizing 9 months of work, collaboration, indeed, rich debates into 20 minutes. That was really super interesting. Again, I might be partial, but there is many things I love about this initiative. Maybe one of them is in itself the timing, the fact that it was like a long debate that lasts 9 months, that you allow different stakeholders to meet again. And as you said, we can see the evolution of those debates because of this time of discussion, this time of reflection. And that's really great, especially in an epocha where we are going faster. And also the fact that you did it in person, that all the events were really like physical, in person. And this is something we've been discussing sometime in other urban AI conversations. How could we use AI for public participation? Should we sometime, replace synthetically some population virtually with like Gen AI, or should we send survey? And I think it's very interesting that showing that even when we are talking about AI or very advanced technologies, there is this importance of in-person, physical, face-to-face debates, discussion, and that it's producing at the end meaningful discussion. So really, thanks a lot. That was, again, super interesting. I might have several questions. I also see some in the chat. So I will also ask them. Maybe first question, I was wondering actually at a very personal level, how did it change your own approach of AI? Like during this entire experiment, uh, did your perspective on this technology evolve? And if yes, in which way?
Juliette, do you want to start?
Yes. To be really honest with you, I didn't know very much about AI when I arrived at Nantes Métropole. I arrived at the very beginning of phase 2, so back in September 2024. And I mean, I knew about AI as everybody heard of it before, but all the ecology part, I didn't know about that at all. I didn't know that if I was asking ChatGPT something, that was not really good for our planet. So I learned very, very much things, but especially about ecology, and it really changed the way I use AI today in my personal life, because I don't use it anymore. But that's a personal choice. That's a really personal choice.
As for me, I think the input and the impact of Nantes Débat on my perception of it. I mean, we live in a community and in an organization that is very, very cautious about using AI just at the right place and in the right measure. But there was always, I always had this sort of geek feeling that I could do, a bit of more research and try to do my shadow AI own framework. And listening to the extent of, the concern expressed by people around, people who, as civil servants, we are here to serve. I completely stopped doing shadow AI, because they were so, moderate and concerned about a number of issues. Juliette just mentioned ecology, but also, making sure that we really know from end to end what's happening. And ultimately, with shadow AI, you cannot know for sure. That wasn't the right use of my time and of public money, obviously.
Okay, so really actually conducted like in your own practice of AI in real change in both cases. And Juliette, you mentioned ecology. Marie, you also mentioned like ecology in your presentation. Actually, we hosted, I think it was 5 weeks ago, an urban AI conversation with Eleanor Bones from the city of Seattle and Leila Doti from the city of San Jose, both investigating this topic, like the environmental footprint of AI as part of a research with the GovAI Coalition. So just a parenthesis, but I really encourage you to go have a look to this episode, fascinating episode on this topic. And on your end, Marie and Juliette, after like those debates investigating this topic, how do you believe local governments can have an impact on the environmental footprints of AI? What could be done by cities?
Mm. We do have, I mentioned this compass with 80 also questions, which, range through a broad area of topics. But among all of these, there are about 40 that really focus on environmental elements. And so we ask them to any provider or in any public market, public tender, we ask them to any people who would use AI to reply or to provide as a service to our community. And I think it has proven to be a very powerful tool, because right now, or I mean, the first half of 2025, when you ask questions that spans through the whole life cycle of AI, you ask about the performance of data centers, you ask about the performance of the various models, training models, how often, what range, what depths of data sets, and so on. It really goes through the bottom of it. Well, there are a number of situations. Either the providers know and they are already aware of how to measure and how to respond to these requests, and we are good and we can carry on being in business together, or they have to improve, and then we push them and we sort of level up the overall level of the ecosystem, or simply they don't care or they're not ready yet, and then, well, they have basically to take this into account. So it's a strong lever, sorry, to to help the system, become more aware that that's basically what people are asking.
So more transparency, like on this also ecological costs, ecological footprint. We saw that Mistral AI released more transparency on life cycle analysis of their AI models, LLM models. So hopefully we're having this more and more. I maybe have last question, and then I will ask your question, Signe and Dane. How replicable do you think is this methodology, this entire project? Like, do you believe it's something that can only be done in a sense by metropolis, or how would you recommend, launching such an initiative for smaller cities with smaller resources?
And what is time consuming is not to organize the events, because we in the vast majority of the events we identified things that were already happening in the territory, and we just checked that they were really questioning AI and not just talking about AI as demonstrators. But so that's an easy thing to do, and it's pretty cost effective. What was time consuming is really to make sure that you get to record very precisely what's being expressed. And you mentioned, Uber, that you were considering whether it could be done using generative AI, or in the distance. The beauty of doing things locally, even at a small level, even with like a dozen of events, not 56, is that you get to see people interact with each other, meaning that when you check the verbatims, you check the wordings, there are pages and pages of them, but you can adjust the transcript to what people express. You can adjust the level of language to what you remember from the body language, from the level of excitement. And so you have all this sense that otherwise is lost. You see, there are many events organized where people eventually discuss about AI, discuss about ethics and so on, but all of this precious material is lost somehow, because everybody comes home and you don't do anything with that. While here we were able to see people transform from one event to the next, even if they were not actually the same people, but the level of maturity was amazing, and started to grow, and the exchange become more and more complex. And that, I think, can be analyzed, ideally with the help of specialists like we use that in your ecosystem, Uber. But there must be ways to do it as well, and to perceive it. But the key point is to make sure that you capture the raw material in a really precise way.
Yeah, in a sense, the methodology, like the approach itself, was quite frugal, actually. I remember we discussed it, but you really managed to do something to create like decentralized events, because it was a very bottom-up dynamic. And indeed, like you said, what is needed is recording the events, and also then the transcription. So I know Juliette did like an amazing and intensive work on this, but in itself, it's a lot of work, but it's still manageable for any kind of cities.
Definitely, yeah.
Maybe we have questions from Dane Gambrell asking more precision. I think you answered some of them, Marie, but just to be sure. So Dane is asking who organized all the events, who participated, and what did participants did during the events, and how was their input collected? We answered a bit, but just to be sure to cover.
Juliette, you want to answer that?
Yes. So the question again was who organized and who participated, right?
Yeah.
Many people actually. We as the Metropolis, we did organize a few events, but it could be basically anyone, could be businesses. Yeah. Who else?
People from the academia.
Yeah.
We had public conferences and debates, and so we checked. There was a call for contribution at the very beginning of Nantes Débat, and the ecosystem raised their hands, and say, well, we're going to have this. Does it match? Can it be certified? And so we checked whether it was going to be, I always use this example. We didn't want to have like this, these events where people were simply demoing what AI can do. You know, can you also create your own picture of the Pope wearing a Dolce Gabbana coat? We didn't want that, because that's not, you know, when people were having or were being put in a critical position, whether pro or against, but trying to express, you know, various views around different topics and different aspects of AI. So that's what we were looking for. And as we're in a pretty dynamic ecosystem, we were able to certify quite a few events, and we were looking then afterwards for the variety in the angles in the various sectors, and also in age, for example. And we were a bit pragmatic and opportunistic about that, but we didn't schedule to because we didn't have time to, you know, think this through very comprehensively. So we admitted, as maybe a bias, but also the beauty of this, that we wouldn't use the traditional methodology where we just panelize and we say we want to have representatives of this part of the population, this part and this part. We just went with the flow, but the flow provided some, you know, it's serendipity moment. For example, we have in the university the UNESCO chair thinking on educational resources, and the partnership with a number of 12th grade, I mean, at least in the British sector, it's 12th grade, 12th grade students, which were reflecting on, you know, what's the use of thinking, what's the use of learning, what's the use of creating in the age of AI. And we captured the whole events. There were I think a couple of days around these events. We captured the whole transcripts of those young people, which were about like 15 years old. And it was really amazing to see the questions that they were asking themselves and the educators about the world we live in now and the world they were going to be adults in. So there was also this bit of serendipity, and I would honestly recommend that as well.
Other questions actually from Sydney about the AI Compass, who's asking when is this activated and what does it focus on? And lastly, who's use it?
Okay, so the Compass is something we establish as for our own organization. Because for our public services, as any organization, I believe, in the world right now, we see the emergence of possible AI-powered tools, but we want to ask ourselves, do we want to use these tools or not? To what extent? And you know, we are trying to check how can we remain in control of the whole thing. So it has a number of criteria, the Compass itself, ranging from what are the effects on the public service, which is first and foremost why we're here as a public organization. What are the impacts on our civil servants, people who work within the organization? And for this, we even have a 5-year monitoring process that goes beyond the initial Compass review. Transparency, sovereignty, you know, if the provider is based in Europe or not, where are the databases or the data centers located, and so on and so forth. We have these 40 questions around ecology and environmental footprint. We have questions about cybersecurity, because we don't want to patch anything to our IT systems that would create like a breach, a potential breach. So we are also conduct a thorough set of questions about that, and so on and so forth. So this Compass, we have a collective well, we have a group of people who, within our organizations, every time there is a request from one or another of the groups within our organization that say, well, we'd like for this public service, we'd like to use AI now going forward. We say, well, right, but you have to work with us and we have to review all the questions within our AI compass. So that's the prerequisite prior to us onboarding any AI tool. And it's a prerequisite, but it can also be a no-go signal, because eventually if we find out that there are too many criterions that are not met according to the standards that we set, well, we simply work with the colleagues and say, well, we're sorry, but right now we don't think that AI would match what we think it should match to become part of our processes and organization.
And what is also interesting, you shared it, is that those discussions, they are enriching like those guidelines, those compass. So there is really like an impact of this 9 months project. In addition of creating the discussions, the debate, there's also stronger political dimension. Still another question from Signe, who is asking if you used AI tools in any of your in-person workshops.
No, I have to say at some point we the only element where we tried AI was to facilitate the transcript of the audio recordings that we had, and honestly it was not really well, it was not fine-tuned enough to be helpful. Other than that, no, we didn't use any AI at all, and we specifically requested that Urban AI does not use AI neither in this process, because we really believe in the value of connecting the narratives, the narrators, the overarching discourses and so on, based on the experiences of the various specialists that worked with us in this process. So yeah, there was really a human-driven process on all accounts.
Indeed, I was indeed going to add, because this is a question often asked, if in the analytical part we used generative AI or any kind of AI. And as you said, Marie, also in the narrative analysis, no AI at all was used. So really it was human listening. And I really like to say that it's because like words have a meaning. And so it was quite important to analyze it with like human ears and human brain. So indeed, no AI in this case. A question from Lina, who actually used to work at Urban AI. So great to see you, Lina. So maybe reading your comments, I previously worked at the municipality of Amsterdam and helped organize a participation trajectory where we held dialogues with citizens to shape our vision on AI. And indeed, thanks for sharing. That's a super interesting project. So link is in the chat. I'm really impressed at the way you were able to do this at a larger scale in Nantes by certifying a variety of events. Do you plan to continue supporting such events in the future to make sure the conversation is ongoing?
Yeah, that's the you hit an interesting point, Lena, because obviously there are still events that would largely be certifiable happening and scheduled, in particular in September and for the rest of the year. We don't keep on monitoring them because we have to move our resources to other projects. So we continue, listening ourselves, but not recording them. Probably I would be the advocate for like in a year or 18 months time to have like another sneak peek at another range of events, but we'll see how it goes, and if it is approved. We cannot have this continued event because it's really the depth that we we put in place, it really, well, it's good for Juliette because she was hired to do this full time for like a year, but we won't be able to just focus just on that for a moment. But it was amazing to be able to get this firsthand witnessing, actually.
I'm wondering, Marie, Juliette, what advice could we give to, municipalities, local governments that in a sense are hesitating, maybe doesn't have as Nantes or as Amsterdam in their DNA, this very strong participatory DNA. What is an advice that could be shared to start? And we know that it's not always easy. Sometimes citizen discussions are not easy to organize, or yeah, like what would you recommend?
Maybe, and Juliette, feel free to add to that, but maybe it's possible, with just a range of, I don't know, post-it notes to sort of manage with the organizer. So first, identify a number of things that are happening. This is like low-key, low-maintenance sort of movement that you can initiate. And then if you agree with the organizers to be there and you say at the beginning, yeah, we're going to watch this, listen carefully, and at the end of the event, if you agree, we'll just make sure that together we put on a couple of post-its the most important keywords that you heard during the event. Then from one event to the next, you gather a number of insights in a very precise way. And then you have this sort of material already at hand. It's not like kilometers of verbatims, of wordings, but it's already, you get a sense of what people are really expressing. And that's basically what we're here to, right? To conduct public service in a way that matches people's expectations. So that's, I think, perhaps a way to capture this without having this whole machinery in place.
Yeah, and indeed, maybe as you said, the local government of the municipality doesn't necessarily have to be the organizer of all the events. Like you can facilitate, you can connect, but like local association, NGOs, stakeholders can organize their events, but you are here to certify and to listen to those events if they agree to.
Because these are, I mean, the way these events are organized are already meaningful in themselves. The way panelists are assembled or the panels are made, the general direction of the questions that are asked by the public, the audience, it is already. There are already messages that if you listen to them, you'll capture one event after the other. So. We have I have colleagues at Nantes Métropole who do public consultation in the more traditional way, and they weren't able to assist because they have a full agenda with other things. So that's also why we decided to create this sort of methodology from scratch. But you can try to aim for the perfect panel and having like the traditional route of participatory events, or you can go with the flow because already from a bottom-up perspective, what is being created by your territory is meaningful.
Super interesting. Well, thanks a lot, really, Marie, Juliette, for this fascinating and also inspiring discussion. I really hope it will encourage more and more in-person physical discussion on this topic, even if we're talking on AI and that it's it looks to be very advanced technology. We don't necessarily have to use our screens. Well, that's another topic. Maybe we'll discuss it for another episode. But yeah, we can use like physical space, agora, to collectively discuss this topic and decide on how we want to shape this ongoing evolution. Well, thanks, Marie. Thanks, Juliette, for this episode. It will be available on our YouTube channel in the very coming hours, and an article, a synthesis, will be available on our blog next week. And if you want to attend the recording of next Urban AI conversation, it will be next week, same day, same time, and we will discuss the cognitive risks and effect of overusing ChatGPT. Thanks everyone, and take care. Bye Marie, bye Juliette.
Bye.